Psychedelics, the world's most controversial drugs. Some claim that their experiences with these substances have changed their lives for the better, and others warn against the dangers of messing with the inner workings of our minds. But today, we are not talking about your common magic mushrooms. We are instead going over the many types of uncommon psychedelic drugs that have a history of inducing nightmarish hallucinations and leaving people shaken up for days, weeks, or even indefinitely after consumption. We will also look at real, personal experiences by people who have done these substances and uncover the short and long-term effects it had on them, starting with Datura, aka Devil's Trumpet. Datura, also known by names like Jimson Weed or Devil's Trumpet, has been used historically in some cultures for spiritual and shamanic practices. But, and this is a big but, it's an extremely risky substance. Datura is not the kind of psychedelic that gives you colorful visuals or gentle introspection. It's a deliriant, which means it causes a state of intense confusion, hallucinations that feel 100% real, and a level of disassociation that can be outright terrifying. With Datura, you're not just seeing things, you're experiencing true delusions. Unlike the soft visuals you might get with something like LSD or psilocybin from mushrooms, where you know what you're seeing isn't real, Datura tricks you into believing in your hallucinations. People under Datura's influence often can't tell they're hallucinating. They might hold entire conversations with people who aren't there, interact with objects that don't exist, or even leave their house and wander around in dangerous states of confusion. Imagine being fully convinced that your best friend is sitting beside you, talking with you, or even laughing with you, only to snap out of it and realize there's no one there. That's exactly the type of reality warping power Datura has. It's less of a trip and more of a complete, often nightmarish alternative reality. People have reported hallucinations so vivid, they thought they'd been transported to another location or time. Yeah, let that sink in. One of the most frightening aspects of Datura is the duration. The effects can last anywhere from a few hours to several days, depending on the dosage and the person's physiology. During this time, users are essentially trapped in a world where hallucinations blend with reality. Because of its long-lasting effects, Datura users sometimes have little memory of what happened while they were under the influence. In extreme cases, people have found themselves miles from home or in dangerous situations with no idea how they got there. Which leads us to the case of Tim and his experience with Datura. Say hello to Tim. He experimented with Datura at a party with his friends. He shared, "I took it, thinking it would be this mystical, spiritual thing. Within an hour, I was seeing everyone at the party turn into these shadowy figures. They all had blank faces, just dark outlines, like something out of a nightmare. I tried to escape them and ended up hiding under a table in a stranger's house, convinced it was my own bedroom." Tim's experience didn't end there. For hours, he was lost in a cycle of hiding, panicking, and hallucinating people chasing him. He described Datura as being locked in a horror film with no off switch. When he finally came to a day and a half later, he had no memory of how he'd gotten home and felt traumatized by the experience. So that's a pretty standard Datura experience, intense, often terrifying, and disorienting in ways that most psychedelics just don't touch. But that sparks the question, why do people even try Datura? One reason people are drawn to this magic flower is its status as a natural substance. It's a plant, which can make it seem safer or less intense, like some kind of herbal tea that's a little stronger than chamomile. But Datura's effects are unpredictable and vary dramatically depending on the plant's age, season, and location, which means dosage is incredibly hard to control. You could take a small amount and feel nothing, or end up on a 3-day hallucinogenic roller coaster. Alongside the intense mental effects, Datura brings some serious physical risks. The active compounds in Datura, aka tropane alkaloids like scopolamine, hyoscyamine, and atropine, are toxic. These alkaloids can cause severe dehydration, dry mouth, blurred vision, urinary retention, and increased heart rate. In extreme cases, Datura overdose can lead to respiratory arrest, seizures, and even death. Hospitals frequently see cases of Datura poisoning, especially in areas where it grows wild, because people often don't realize just how dangerous it can be. Because of the profound confusion and loss of control, Datura users frequently engage in behavior they wouldn't dream of while sober. There are reports of people wandering into traffic, climbing dangerous structures, or even attempting to swim in bodies of water while completely unaware of their surroundings. Emergency rooms have seen countless cases where Datura users needed to be restrained or sedated for their own safety. One famous story tells of a guy who on Datura walked out into the street in his underwear, convinced he was on a mission to save the world. Another thought his living room was a swamp and tried to swim through his own carpet for hours. These stories might sound funny, and I mean, they kind of are, but in the moment, they're terrifying, dangerous situations. Datura isn't just a short-term experience. For some, the hallucinations and delusions continue to haunt them well after the drug wears off. Users have reported feeling anxious, paranoid, or disoriented for weeks or even months afterward. There are real documented cases of people experiencing PTSD-like symptoms, especially if they were in a dangerous situation or had a particularly traumatic trip. The experience of being completely lost in your own mind isn't something everyone can just brush off. Imagine living in an alternate reality where nothing makes sense, only to wake up with haunting memories of things you thought were real. For a lot of people, the Datura trips leave scars, mental and emotional. And well, that's exactly why you should never do it. A lot like the next psychedelic on our list, and that is pufodinin, aka toad venom. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Certain species of toads actually secrete this substance, and some brave, or maybe just very curious, people have taken it as a psychedelic. Pufodinin's effects are short but intense, often described as a cosmic punch. It's a substance that takes you straight to the depths of your mind, often with physical sensations and intense, sometimes unsettling visuals. Pufodinin, like Datura, is a naturally occurring compound, a tryptamine similar to DMT, and yes, they really are classified as tryptamines. Pufodinin can be found in certain plants and animals, most famously the Colorado River toad. The substance can be ingested in a few ways. Some people dry and smoke the venom, while others, in more dubious folklore, have licked toads directly. The latter, though, is not advised, not only because it's imprecise, but also because some species of toads produce toxins that are actually deadly. Pufodinin is chemically similar to DMT, which is known for producing vivid, intense visuals. But pufodinin's effect isn't just visual. It has a physical component that can feel overwhelming. This isn't a relax and enjoy the colors type of trip. Pufodinin hits fast, hard, and then leaves you wondering if you just spent a few minutes in another dimension. Users experience a full sensory overload that's more than just hallucinations. People report a kind of body high that's both euphoric and uncomfortable, like a buzzing or vibrating feeling all over. Some people describe it as feeling their blood moving or a tingling sensation that overtakes the entire body. The visuals that come with pufodinin are often compared to an intense DMT trip, but they're usually accompanied by sensations that can feel extreme or overwhelming. It's not uncommon to hear people describe pufodinin as feeling like they've become part of an electric circuit. Carlos is one user who shared his experience with pufodinin. He tried smoking the dry toad venom, thinking it would be an intense but enlightening experience. Instead, he felt like he was being sapped into another realm almost instantly. 1 second, I was in my living room. The next, I was floating in this swirling, neon-colored space, he said. Carlos described feeling as if he'd been submerged in water, with his body vibrating intensely. I looked at my hands and they were glowing. I couldn't tell if I was real or if I was a part of the colors I was seeing. At one point, Carlos thought he could communicate telepathically with his goldfish, Frankie, who he swore was telling him the meaning of life. When the trip wore off, only about 10 minutes later, Carlos was left physically exhausted and mentally rattled. It felt like I'd been thrown out of reality and then pulled back just as quickly. I'm not sure if I was ever supposed to see what I saw. One unique aspect of pufodinin is that the trip is incredibly fast, usually lasting only 5 to 15 minutes. But do not be fooled by the short duration. Those minutes are packed with intense visuals, physical sensations, and what some users describe as a feeling of cosmic insight. It's as if pufodinin compresses the typical length of a DMT experience into a much shorter time frame, making it feel overwhelming and hard to process in real time. The result is often a sensory overload that people struggle to make sense of even after it's over. Unlike other psychedelics where you might get to ease into the trip, pufodinin basically slams you into an altered state with no warning. 1 minute you're here and the next you're swimming through neon shapes, feeling like you're connected to the universe in some electric, overwhelming way. By the time you process what's happening, it's already winding down. In addition to the intense visuals, pufodinin can cause physical side effects that are hard to ignore. Many users report a buzzing or tingling sensation throughout their body, which can feel euphoric but also very uncomfortable. Some people even describe feeling as though they're vibrating out of sync with their surroundings. This body high can be unsettling and has led some users to feel nauseous or lightheaded, especially when they snap back to reality. Nausea is another common side effect, which can make the experience even more challenging. After coming down, users often feel a mix of relief and confusion. session, wondering what just happened and why they feel so drained. One user even described it as feeling like every cell in my body was buzzing, which might sound cool at first, but it's a lot to handle all at once. Imagine your body is like an electric wire. Now imagine someone cranks up the voltage to max. That's what people say it feels like on Pfaffinen. Toad venom's powerful effects can be overwhelming for some people, especially if they're not prepared for such an intense experience. The sensation of being ripped from reality and thrown into a psychedelic realm can induce panic or fear, especially if users feel out of control or unable to stop the trip. Some people even report feeling as though they've been torn out of their own bodies, which can be deeply unsettling. Unlike other psychedelics where you might be aware that you're hallucinating, Pfaffinen's intensity can blur the line between reality and illusion to the point that people feel genuinely terrified. One reason folks are drawn to Pfaffinen is the idea of a mystical experience. Stories of indigenous cultures using it in shamanic rituals and spiritual practices make it sound like a gateway to profound insight or cosmic wisdom. But while Pfaffinen can produce powerful, almost otherworldly visuals, it doesn't guarantee a spiritual experience. Without guidance, the experience can be confusing or distressing even. The thing is, Pfaffinen isn't really something you can control or guide. It takes you wherever it wants to take you. One moment you're floating peacefully, the next you're zooming through geometric patterns, feeling like your entire body is a tuning fork. It's less of a gentle journey and more of a roller coaster that drops you off wherever it feels like, which, although all of that sounds extremely scary and unsettling, it's nothing compared to the next and final substance we'll be talking about, and that is scopolamine, aka devil's breath. This one has a reputation that's as ominous as its name. Scopolamine is not a typical psychedelic. It's a powerful deliriant that's known for causing severe confusion, loss of control, and most notoriously, making people incredibly suggestible. In some places, it's even used as a mind control substance in criminal activity, which should give you an idea of just how intense it is. Scopolamine comes from a plant called Brugmansia or angel's trumpet. It's also found in other plants in the nightshade family, like Jimson weed or henbane. Originally, scopolamine was used for medical purposes, like preventing motion sickness or helping with nausea, but at high doses, it turns into something far darker. A substance capable of erasing a person's memory and free will. Imagine something that doesn't just alter your perception, but takes away your ability to say no. That's scopolamine in a nutshell. It's known to cause memory blackouts, confusion, and scarily enough, a complete loss of free will. This is a drug that doesn't just affect you, it controls you. Unlike most psychedelics or even deliriants, which can cause confusion or strange behavior, scopolamine takes things a step further. People under the influence of scopolamine often become totally suggestible, meaning they'll do almost anything someone asks them to do, with no memory of it later. This is why it's sometimes referred to as the zombie drug. It essentially turns people into blank slates, open to any suggestion. This level of suggestibility is very dangerous. Imagine being in a state where someone could ask you to hand over your wallet, give away your keys, or even follow them to an unknown location, and you do it without question. Scopolamine takes away a person's willpower and autonomy, which is why it's been used in criminal settings for robberies and scams. Victims don't often even remember what happened and only realize later that they've been taken advantage of. This isn't like a dream where you're vaguely aware of things going around you. Under scopolamine, people become completely compliant and unaware of what's happening to them. They wake up later, sometimes miles from where they started, with no idea how they got there or who they might have handed their life savings to. Take the case of Megan, who encountered scopolamine at a party. She didn't take it knowingly. Someone slipped it into her drink. Megan described the experience as like waking up in a foggy nightmare. For hours, she moved through the party in a zombie-like trance, handing out her phone number to complete strangers, giving away her belongings, and at one point apparently trying to help a friend find a lost item that did not exist. When she woke up the next morning, she had no memory of what happened. Her friends later told her about the strange behavior she'd exhibited, but to her, the night was a blank slate. She felt violated, realizing how vulnerable she had been. I gave out my phone, my wallet, and walked out with a complete stranger because he told me he needed help, she said. I don't remember any of it. It was like someone else had taken over my mind. Megan's story perfectly shows how dangerous scopolamine can be. It's not just about losing your memory like you would after a few too many drinks. It's about losing your entire sense of self. Scopolamine's mental effects aren't the only risks. Physically, the drug causes dry mouth, blurred vision, increased heart rate, and in some cases, hallucinations. Users report feeling an intense brain fog where they can't think clearly or remember anything around them. The drug essentially disconnects a person from their own senses and thoughts, leaving them in a state where they're barely aware of what's going on. Most people who encounter scopolamine do so by accident like Megan, but there are some who try it knowingly, often drawn in by stories of its powerful mind-altering effects or its historic use in spiritual practices. In small doses, scopolamine has been used as an anti-nausea medication, and it's even sometimes administered administered for surgeries to calm patients, but the trip scopolamine provides in high doses is completely different, often filled with hallucinations, confusion, and terrifying disorientation. The problem with trying scopolamine recreationally is that it's extremely hard to control the dose. Take too much and you're in zombie mode, and the hallucinations are nothing like what you'd get from other psychedelics. They're often more frightening and hard to distinguish from reality. People report seeing dark figures, hearing voices, or feeling completely disconnected from their surroundings. One of the scariest aspects of scopolamine is its use in criminal activity. In some areas, especially in parts of South America, scopolamine has been used as a tool for robbery or assault. Criminals will slip the drug into someone's drink or blow it into their face, turning him into a passive, suggestible zombie. Victims will often hand over their valuables or willingly walk with the silent, only to wake up hours later confused and missing their belongings. There are countless stories from Colombia and other countries where criminals have used scopolamine to rob or assault people. The substance is tasteless and odorless, making it almost impossible to detect. Victims wake up in strange places, often alone and with no memory of how they got there or what even happened. Because of its intense effects, scopolamine can leave lasting psychological scars on those who experience it. People who have been unknowingly dosed with scopolamine often report feelings of paranoia and anxiety for weeks or even months afterward. The experience of losing total control over their actions and memory can be deeply unsettling, leading to long-term fear and trauma. Megan, for instance, admitted that even after her memory came back, she struggled with paranoia. She described feeling like she couldn't trust her own mind anymore. Every time I had a drink or went out, I kept wondering if someone was going to slip something in. It makes you feel vulnerable in a way you can't shake off, she said. For many people, the fear of scopolamine goes way beyond the physical effects. It's about the deep psychological impact of being stripped of your autonomy. Scopolamine isn't just a bad trip. It's an experience that can leave you feeling disconnected from your own mind, unable to trust yourself or even others. It's the ultimate nightmare for anyone who values control over their own life. But that's it for our first video here on the channel. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing and leaving a like, as that would help tremendously for producing these videos long term. Until next time, have a good one.